right, gentlemen. I mean, different day, same guys. Come on, That's good. Well, it's good to see you. Yeah, and you went on vacation last week. All right, so we'll let you get your thoughts together.
That's right, Governor. I was on vacation last week, but back at it in full effect yesterday, and the governor made a stop down in Litchfield, which is about, 50 miles south of Springfield, for a ribbon cutting of a new center that's going to be focused on the trades, getting high school students and those who are in between jobs, skilled trades in auto mechanics, in welding, and a whole host of other things. So they cut the ribbon on that. That's paid for by various dollars through capital improvement funds and whatnot. So they had a nice long ceremony with a variety of important people down in the Litchfield area. So I was able to bounce down there and capture that, but also to ask the governor a series of questions along with other members of the media. But he obviously, there are only 3 members of the working press there, and interesting to know that the governor knows that I was on vacation last week, which is kind of fascinating.
All right, gentlemen. I mean, different day, same guys. Come on,
It's like 35 minutes for you to go to school.
That's good. Well, it's good to see you. Yeah, and you went on vacation last week.
I was.
All right, so we'll let you get your thoughts together.
So what were some of the questions that I had? Well, we asked him about the Mapes verdict, which we'll get to in a moment, but I had to ask about COVID-19. So first, before we hear what the governor had to say about the possibility of more mandates, which he said that, no, that's Facebook fakery. We'll hear that coming up. But President Joe Biden over the weekend, he had some thoughts that he wanted to share to the question of COVID-19, the status of that, and whether or not we're going to see a new vaccine. And President Biden says, yeah, he's signed off on a proposal for a new vaccine to get some funding for it. And what's he going to do with a possible recommendation for that vaccine?
Anything about the uptick of COVID cases and new variant?
Yes, I can. Matter of fact, I signed off this morning on a proposal we have to present to the Congress a request for additional funding for a new vaccine that is necessary, that works. And tentatively, not decided finally yet, tentatively it is recommended that, or would likely be recommended that everybody get it, no matter whether they got it before or not.
So President Biden talking about the vaccine and saying that it's going to come out sometime in September. But you had the White House yesterday with Karine Jean-Pierre also talk about the vaccine and what the White House messaging is going to be for those who should get the vaccine. Here's Karine Jean-Pierre.
And that's because safe and updated vaccines that will be available in mid-September, widely available at-home COVID tests, right? I talked about the different tools that this administration has been able to put forward, widely available effective treatments, which can reduce the risk of severe illness, hospitalization, and death. And we are also going to encourage Americans to get their updated COVID-19 vaccine in addition to their annual flu shot. Let's not forget that is important for Americans to get, and an RSV immunization for people over 60 and for infants. That is something that we're going to continue to make very clear to Americans across the country. As it relates to any uptick nationally, while the CDC is reporting an increase in infections and hospital admissions overall remains low. But again, we believe that we are in a good position, in the strongest position that we have been in the past 3 years or so to deal with COVID-19. There's going to be an updated vaccine in mid-September. We're going to continue to encourage Americans to get their updated vaccine, to stay updated on their vaccines more broadly, but also to make sure they get the RSV and also to make sure that they're getting the flu shot.
So Karine Jean-Pierre talking about 3 different shots. The new COVID shot, the flu shot, and an RSV shot. So that's what the White House says they're going to be putting out there. Now, yesterday I did ask Governor J.B. Pritzker about new vaccines expected out in September. Are those going to be mandated? Are there going to be mandates for masks or for, excluding children from school if they're a suspected COVID case? Because remember, you had even the federal government, when Biden took in in the office of president in 2021, he mandated that certain federal employees get a vaccine, but then he started ramping it up, saying that, despite saying he's not going to mandate things, if you recall, he came in and then put a mandate in place for all businesses over a certain number, I think it was over like 50 or something, had to require their employees to get the COVID shot. Went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they struck that down, but they kept in place the mandate for health workers to be vaccinated against COVID-19. So the federal government had that mandate shot down. In Illinois, during COVID-19, after the vaccine came out, Governor J.B. Pritzker talked about how there's going to be a mandate for school staff, for college staff, for college students, for healthcare workers, for those in state government that work in congregate settings, and so on. So you had that mandate in place. But now we've got a COVID variant that the old vaccines aren't going to work for, a new vaccine expected in September. How do you manage this? And is there going to be a mandate in Illinois? That was a question I asked the governor, and here's what the governor had to say to that question of, the new vaccine, what's going to be like, when's it coming out, are there going to be mandates?
I think we've done a good job of making sure that we get a significant majority of our population vaccinated. That's happened. We want people to continually update their vaccinations, as you know, in order to avoid the newest strains of the flu. People go in every year, particularly the most vulnerable, to make sure that their flu vaccines are up to date. Now you'll be able to do it all in one shot. As I understand, there'll be a combination of the COVID vaccine and the flu shot for people who want to do that. But we're going to continue to communicate about this. As you've seen, there's been an uptick in cases recently, but still there's a very low level of transmission across the state of Illinois. I'm very pleased about that, and it's because the people of Illinois have taken good care of themselves and each other.
So no mask mandate or school exclusion or anything like that?
No. In fact, I will tell you that I find it funny that you see on Facebook, the Facebook fakery about some kind of coming mandate. Nobody's even talked about that. It's not a real thing. But what is a real thing is people need to take care of themselves, and particularly those who are most vulnerable. We're talking about people who are sick, who have cancer, people who are elderly, and frankly, everybody. It's not a bad idea for people to go in and make sure that they have up-to-date flu vaccines and up-to-date COVID vaccines.
All right, thanks, guys.
So again, that's Governor J.B. Pritzker saying that he doesn't expect to make mandates like mask mandates or school exclusion mandates or the vaccine mandates. But listen, I mean, the situation could change drastically. Who knows? Maybe there's a crazy uptick of COVID-19 deaths and hospitalizations, and we can't necessarily predict the future, especially when you look back at the beginning of COVID. And I remember watching this as on-the-ground reporter, going to the governor's office for news conferences with the governor and Dr. Ngozi Ezike at the time, the director of the Illinois Department of Public Health. And they said, time after time again, that there was no threat to the general public. You can go look at those transcripts. You can go look at those news stories from February of 2020. There was no threat to the general public, but that switched on a dime, and then it was lockdowns, it was closing schools, it was closing businesses, it was mask mandates and distancing mandates. You can only have 2 people per boat. So you have these things flip on a dime. So obviously we'll keep a close eye on all of this and what exactly happens with the COVID-19 situation as we head into an election year. Because keep in mind, the COVID situation also brought on drastic change in how we go about with mail-in ballots. So that's part of what's fueling a lot of the, quote, Facebook fakery that the governor mentioned in his response there. Also interesting to note, too, the governor did talk about how he expects the vaccine for COVID-19, the new variants, to also be wrapped in with a flu vaccine so you can have the choice of only getting one shot. Again, have yet to see those details. Maybe the governor knows something that has yet to be reported, so we'll be watching that closely. Expect those details sometime in the weeks ahead.